Hey guys, today in the shop we have a 2006 F350 in for a leveling kit to make some room for some bigger tires and get this truck sitting with a little bit better stance. This installation guide applies from 2005 to 2016 Superdutys. So stay tuned, guys. So this guy came to me and asked me to install a leveling kit in his truck to make a little bit more room to clear his American Force wheels here. Some of you, it might be that you want to run a little bit beefier of a tire for, a little bit more of like an off-road type of look. But either way, if you want to run a larger tire than stock, most times you're going to have to at least do a leveling kit to get full clearance at lock to lock. So this is one of the easiest modifications you can do to your truck. As long as you have a jack and jack stands, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing we got to do is get this truck jacked up. Now, be as safe as you possibly can here. I can't stress it enough. I see a lot of guys do really dangerous stuff when jacking up trucks, and it's your life on the line to maybe just save 5 minutes. So the first thing we want to do, get it jacked up, get some nice sturdy jack stands under it. I like to put them, for this particular job, I like to put them under a plow frame if we have it, or under the frame itself behind the radius arms. You got to get the jack stands somewhere that aren't under the axle itself, because what we're going to need to do here is get the axle so it droops down. So once you get it up on some jack stands and shake the truck, make sure it's nice and stable, we can go ahead and start getting these wheels off. So there's multiple types of leveling kits you can go with on these trucks. The type that we have is made by Sinister. It just happened to be what the customer dropped off to us, but you kind of really can't go wrong with any of them as long as you don't get something real cheap with real poor quality hardware. I'll put a couple of links in the description to some of the kits that I would recommend. But the type that we have gets installed on the bottom of the spring. I like this because it bolts in. It's a very factory type of look. There are a few other kits that'll actually go in above the spring. Those work great too. I just personally don't typically use those. Either way, what we got to do is we got to get this axle droop down. So we're going to start off by jacking the axle itself up just enough to take the tension off, and then we're going to disconnect the shock and disconnect the sway bar. Now you're going to want to do the same thing on both sides, and then we'll let the axle down nice and level. To get the shocks unbolted, all you really need to do on this is disconnect this bolt down right here in the bottom. It has a flag nut on it, so you don't need to worry about putting a wrench on it. It's just an 18mm socket. You can use a 1/2-inch impact gun. On this particular truck, obviously, as you can tell, the shocks are pretty crusty, so we're going to be doing shocks. But you don't necessarily need to replace the shocks. The OEM shocks are long enough to get this leveling kit in there. So next up is the bolts for the sway bar. So if you just grab a 18mm socket with a 1/2-inch swivel and your 1/2-inch impact, you just get that right on there, and then there's a nut on the back side that's a 21mm. Just take this bolt out on both sides, and then you can swing the sway bar up out of the way. One more tip I have is to disconnect the brake line from the actual axle itself. You're going to need to do this anyway because the bracket and the spacer goes between this bracket and the axle. And plus, once the axle drops down, you're going to want the extra clearance. This brake line will get a little bit tight. So if you take this 10mm bolt off right here, it'll give you a little bit more sweep of the axle. The other thing to pay attention to is your speed sensor. If you disconnect the speed sensor now, there's minimal chance of you doing any damage. I mean, a lot of times there's plenty of slack in them, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. All right, now that that's all disconnected and out of the way, we can very slowly let down the floor jack that's holding the axle up and let the axle drop all the way down as far as it'll go. Sometimes when you drop the axle down, your springs will get stuck in the top here. I definitely recommend just pulling these off. I mean, you could probably change it without pulling them off, but this is kind of a putting yourself in front of the barrel of a loaded gun. These springs could fall down at any time and catch your fingers. So just kind of give them a wiggle and they should come right out. Next up is removing this bracket from the top of the axle. It has an 18mm retaining bolt, and you can take it off with a 1/2-inch gun. Now keep in mind the speed sensor is bolted to this bracket. I mean, you can leave it bolted up to it or you can disconnect it. It doesn't matter because all we're doing is taking the bolt off, moving this bracket up, putting the spacer under it, and then bolting it back down. So now you can install the new spacer in between the original bracket and the axle using the supplied hardware. Repeat the same steps on both sides. And then if you are replacing the shocks, you can go ahead and do that now. Then you can put the springs on the perch, jack the axle back up, making sure to align the spring with the pockets. Then reconnect the sway bar and the shocks. Well guys, that pretty much buttons it up here. So just a couple of quick suggestions is try to be as safe as you possibly can. These are suspension components, so I always recommend double and triple checking your work. You know, the last thing you want to do is have something come loose going down the road. The other thing I suggest is get an alignment when you're done with this. Your steering wheel is definitely going to be off, and it's always a good idea to get a professional alignment done after any kind of suspension component replacement. Aside from that, this job's a lot easier with the buddy. You definitely can do it by yourself, a couple hours in the driveway, but if you have somebody to help you out to align all the springs as you're jacking it back up, it'll make your life a lot easier. So something else I want to talk to you about that I'm really excited about, we've teamed up with Street Diesel Performance out of Connecticut, and we're going to do a giveaway. So we're going to give away a leveling kit for 05 to 2016 Superdutys, and all you have to do is leave a comment. The best comment wins. So we're going to cut it off. September 30th is the last day that you can put a comment in, and on October 1st I'm going to pick the best comment and we'll drop ship you a leveling kit straight from Street Diesel Performance. So if you go and check out their website, they got some great stuff, guys. I mean, they got everything from up pipes, Fickums, exhaust, you name it, even American Force wheels. They're one of the largest American Force dealers in the area. So give them a check out. I'll put a link in the description below. And if you use the discount code in the shop 10, you can get a 10% discount on any Street Diesel Performance branded products. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. They have a lot of awesome products that are branded Street Diesel. They have Street Diesel up pipes. They have some of these leveling kits. They have EGR kits. They have, I mean, you name it. Just go check out their website, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. I always appreciate it. If you liked the video, hit that subscribe button. And once again, guys, thanks for watching In the Shop.